And I'm even more excited to, hello everybody, it's Paula Nutting, your musculoskeletal specialist, and I'm super excited for my first opportunity, and Michelle's as well, to be working in a platform such as this, which is StreamYard. So Michelle Vassallo, who is all things manual lymphatic drainage and education and research and doularing, and also emu spotting and olive plantation owner.
Hello, good evening, everybody. Hello, Paula. Thank you so much for asking me to join you. I'm really excited to have the opportunity to connect with you and your audience. I've moved out of the city and I'm living on an olive farm now, and I have a pet emu, so I'm watching him walk up and down the fence line. He's been exiled, actually. Yes, Russell the emu. He arrived the day we moved in and he hasn't left, but he's been hassling the tradies, so I've had to lock him in the back paddock because the other day he took my phone out of my bag. He's very friendly, and he likes to eat apples. So, yeah, but anyway, back to MLD, but it's really nice to be with you all tonight, and I'm really pleased to be able to talk to Paula. So that's great. Thank you, Paula.
So I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping. First, I'll just let you know that I've got my VA, my virtual assistant, Eloisa, aka Loy, on the back end doing the moderation. So if you're having any problems in there, if you want to chat into the chat box, if you've got an issue, but mainly I'd love you guys to chat into it, like type into the chat box that you'll see on the side. There'll be comments and chats. So if you click on, we can see the comments now. It says Libby Jones is saying, hello, ladies. Hey, Libby, it's really, really good to see you. Libby is one of my practitioners from Chapman's who lives over in Dublin. Yes, Libby, I'm not sure whether you can actually, if we can physically hear you, but if you can type into the chat area any questions, then they're going to come up into the little band that we've got down at the bottom, and we should be able to see them. Failing that, if you type just in your comment section, we might be able to see them as well. But while we're waiting for any comments, Michelle, can you give a little bit of background about how long you've been doing MLD and the style?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I was studying massage therapy 21 years ago, actually, which is a while now. It seems like not so long ago, but it actually is. And I was attending a few lymphatic drainage classes and decided that I didn't like it at all and it wasn't for me. So I rang my lovely teacher and told her that I wasn't coming back. And she said to me two things. Firstly, I had to go back to complete the subject to get my remedial diploma, so I was kind of locked in. And secondly, she said, I promise that you'll find something here that will appeal to you if you stick with it. And, the reality is that was 21 years ago, and here I am. I've developed my own style after using it for many years in the clinic to see what works and what doesn't work. And mainly the reason that I wanted to adjust what I'd learned and really make it my own was I wanted it to be comfortable for me as a therapist, because the reality is, and self-care is one of my really, I'm very passionate about self-care for body workers and massage therapists. And if we don't look after ourselves, we won't be doing a good job of looking after anyone else. And if you can learn how to deliver lymphatic drainage successfully and comfortably, then you're probably going to use it. And the reality is, a lot of old school teaching many years ago, it wasn't very comfortable for the therapist to deliver the lymphatic drainage sequence. It felt great for the client, but it wasn't comfortable for the therapist. And in order for me to actually use it, I had to find a way that it would be comfortable for me. And so that's how rhythm massage lymphatic drainage style was born. And I've now been teaching internationally for probably 16 years, and also all over Australia. I've got my online modules. There's lots of ways to learn lymphatic drainage, but the reality is that one of the things that I understood when I was learning it and I was using it is you have to continue to practice it, and you have to practice it, religiously. And another thing about my kind of style is that I use it as an adjunct to other remedial treatments. which
Okay.
a lot of clients don't just want a full MLD, so you can get some Chapmans in with your lymphatic drainage, which I know a couple of people that use both of our styles. I've also got lots of therapists who use sliding cupping or scar tissue release or trigger point therapy. So you can really integrate this style. It's not really standalone, because a lot of clients don't really have time for just standalone MLD, and it's not their expectation of their treatment anyway. So, yeah, that's a little bit of a broad history of how I got to be where I am now, really lymphatic speaking.
That's cool. And I'm just wondering a couple of things. One, with the style that you do, because I know it's actually all about better biomechanics for us versus hanging over and forward flexion consistently. Can we do self MLD? Is it possible to do your own drainage?
Well, that's really good, Paula, and people ask me that all the time in the classroom, and I get lots of emails about it. So the reality is, activating your node groups, research suggests, and I've seen this written a couple of times, and I've got references if anyone wants them, but research suggests that you can get a lot of clearing lymphatically speaking by activating your own nodes. And it's super easy to do that, mostly lying down. You can activate all of the upper body nodes lying down, so you can just be in bed activating your nodes. And also seated, there's a big opportunity to clear the bottom half of the body, so the inguinal nodes, the popliteal nodes, the lower abdominal nodes can be done seated. So absolutely, and I teach a lot of students to teach their clients for their own ongoing health and well-being to drain their own nodes. It's very easy to do, and it's very effective.
Okay, we might see if we can get you to show one or two just for people. We're here for 45 minutes, so it would be good to do that. I know with the Chapman's reflexes, we do the same thing. Yeah, because it's when your brain wakes up before you really actually have to get out of bed in a lot of instances, I find. You know how you wake up and you think how much, you look at the clock and you go, oh, I've got 5 minutes. So that's we can do that, like the draining, like wake up the neurolymphatic and then work the lymphatic. So no,
absolutely,
that works well. I think that would work really well. Have you got what would you say is, I'm just waiting to see if anyone makes comments other than Libby, who has said self-care is really important and we don't do enough of it. Is there what would be your first go-to, if you got someone who comes in with, say, a lower back pain, does your head go MLD?
You know what? Actually, when I teach, my head always, and when I treat, my head goes to MLD first. And there's a really good reason for that. So if someone came in with lower back pain, the first thing that I'd really want to do is understand, more about that lower back pain, but I'd really like to activate the parasympathetic nervous system. And so what you get is you get a much better response from treatment if you're able to activate the lower or the parasympathetic nervous system first. And so generally what I teach is in a 1 hour treatment, and it doesn't really matter what the pathology that we're treating is, let's start with the opening sequence, because that will actually activate the parasympathetic nervous system within the first sort of 3 to 4 minutes. And then everything softens and loosens. So probably if I was looking at lower back pain, I'd be activating the parasympathetic with the opening sequence, and we do an abbreviated one, about 5 minutes. Then I would be looking at getting the cisterna chyli activated, which is got to do with diaphragmatic breathing. So getting the client to do some really deep belly breathing. And then I'd also be getting the inguinal nodes and the deep iliacal nodes activated, because we know from the map of the body that most of the lymphatic fluid superficially actually comes and draws around to the front of the body in order to be lifted up and dumped it back into the heart at the left thoracic duct and the right lymphatic duct. So what we really want to do is we want to activate the pathway that we know is going to assist with drainage of that specific lower back area, and then move on to our remedial techniques. And, a lot of people have said to me in the past, well, if I'm using lymphatic drainage first and I'm setting up the flow, doesn't using a remedial technique on top of that actually squash the lymphatic capillaries because they're only 1 cell thick? And the answer to that is yes, it does squash them. but it takes them 20 minutes to actually to reinstate. So if you've already set the drainage up by activating the nodes, then once the single cell lymphatic capillaries have reinstated themselves after the deep pressure, you've actually created a suck-through vacuum effect. So whatever you do in your remedial treatment will actually be enhanced by the fact that, first of all, the parasympathetic nervous system switched on, and secondly, the nodes that are in the area are ready to receive fluid. So if any inflammation has been created by the treatment, or there is ongoing inflammation because of the pathology, both of those things will be mitigated by the activation of lymphatic nodes in the area. And also by the parasympathetic nervous system being switched on, which really allows the body to receive the treatment in a more relaxed and receptive manner. So absolutely, lower back pain, that's a really good question.
Yeah, and it's the same. I think we're working from the same paradigm, because people, like I talk about Chapman's reflexes, but people don't know that the Chapman's reflexes, which were visceral originally, neurolymphatic. So neural, so we're turning on we're regulating the nervous system to a point. It's actually spinal reflex resets that I'm finding that we're working on, and then the lymphatic, and all the work is done anteriorly, or majority of it's worked anteriorly, which does map to lymphatic. And the first thing we'll always do is stimulate through the sternal points, which are actually for the diaphragm, and then we do the breathing. And I tell my patients or clients, and we go through it, is that it's the rest and digest. So expect to hear gurgling. And that's the sternocleidomastoid again. We're working on digestive enzymes and massage in the gut with that movement. Have you got any questions you'd like to ask? Because I noticed that I've got you down there, and Libby is a most amazing practitioner, and she's, as I said, she has a vast amount of work. But if there's an area that she would be looking at, interest for how to work with the MLD, whilst I'm waiting for her to type in the box, Michelle spoke really quickly. I've got some lateral rib pain, and we were talking about, I've just put some tape on, and I was talking to Michelle earlier, and she said taping is really good. Kinesio tape's really good for use with MLD. Can you unpack that a little bit more? What you're saying?
Absolutely. That's actually also a great example of how we could use kinesio tape, Chapman's, and lymphatic together. So in your case, the rib cage actually drains anteriorly and straight up into the axilla, which is the underarm area, and there's a great concentration of fluids. So the rib cage, the lymphatome, or the directional drainage for the rib cage, is straight up into the axilla. And when I'm teaching the chest, we're actually treating not only the anterior chest, but also the lateral flank of the body, which is where that location that you're speaking about is. So in your case, Paula, what I would use lymphatic drainage-wise, I'd activate the parasympathetic nervous system with the short opening. And I saw a comment from Libby, actually. Hi, Libby, saying that it'd be a great habit to get into using the opening sequence with Chapman's. So yes, it's a great habit to get into when you wake up and also when you're treating a client. So Paula, I would open the terminus, activate the terminus to receive fluid, and then on the side that you were injured on, I would actually activate the axilla first, and that's a 3-step process. And then I would actually do my lymphatic movement. So that's a flat hand push, just lifting the surface of the skin off the fascia straight up towards the underarm, because those nodes are already switched on to receive the fluid that's sitting on the flank. So, and then to finish off, I'd actually get the kinesio tape on and make sure that it was pulling in the direction of the underarm, so that you keep the moving up. So that's how I would in your situation.
That's a really good comment, because most times we think about the bones and try to support the bones, but kinesio tape isn't restrictive tape like that. So if people are out there using kinesio tape and we're looking at for that kind of function, then definitely. I had not thought of that because my brain went into rotation for golf, so I was trying to support, but much better up. So I'll be removing this and bring it.
Yeah, and lift it straight up towards the underarm, because the thing about kinesio tape is that it's got that that almost concertina construction inside it. And what happens when you apply it and you stretch up towards the closest node group is it actually lifts the skin from the fascia, so it allows room for the single cell capillaries to move fluid at a faster rate. Because by creating that space, you're actually giving fluid less pressure. And so it's able to actually glide more easily when you create that space. And you want the fluid, the inflammatory process, to happen, but you also want to make sure that the inflammatory process, the fluid that's left there, isn't left there too long. You want it to be dealt with by the nodes. You want that inflammation cleared, and that's what the node's job will do. So moving that fluid up and taping in the direction of the closest node group is an absolute gold trick.
Yeah.
That's a little bit of gold right there.
That's fantastic. And Libby's just asked, how long would you leave the tape on for? For me, I would say until it's too aggravating, but 3 days is normally a standard for kinesio tape.
Absolutely. And, and then I'd probably retape if the injury was still, if it was a chronic ongoing injury. So, for example, many years ago, I had patella tracking, a really serious patella tracking syndrome, and I was grading for my black belt grading in karate. And I actually had to leave the tape on continuously in order to train and to grade. And in the end, I lost skin on the side of my knee because I was having to actually leave the tape in place because of this ongoing situation with my patella while I was strengthening it and while I was training. So, the reality is definitely 3 days for sure. But, if you're looking at something that's long-term and more chronic, it wouldn't be a bad idea to retape after the 3 days. And also, another little trick, if you're taping in the direction of the nodes, at least 3 times a day, activate the node group. And it's so easy to activate a node group. And that's got to do with sustained flat pressure.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So you just it's pulsing, isn't it? It's a gentle...
Well, I've seen because Kev and I have worked lymphatically and also with some Chapmans together, So our routines blend beautifully. And I've seen the way that you do yours, but I'll just get the camera on how I would do mine. Yeah. So I'd be hand underarm, and then, sorry, my computer's sliding away. It always happens when you go on live. And then full flat-handed circles. So it's like you get a flat surface, and you just how the skin goes. Only work as much give as you've got on the skin. And when you work flat hand directly over node groups, the rhythm, the continuous motion actually activates the nodes to pull fluid through a lot faster. And it's a physiological phenomenon. So you can do the pulsing, but for my routine, it's actually flat hand and what I call full circles directly over the node group. And for the armpit, you've got to go right into the pit. It's no use being anterior or posterior. You have to go right into that and then activate those nodes. And it's very simple. And what you want is about 20 of those circles, not too fast. Mm-hmm. And you'll find that in activating the nodes, you'll start to feel the pull-through effect of the fluid. And students talk about it in class all the time. And they say, it feels like champagne bubbles inside if we're treating legs, if we're treating a knee or an ankle or a frozen shoulder. So you really can feel the change in your body when you activate nodes and you get fluid moving. It's a really important way to treat anything, really. And
it does make more sense. going through doing something like that, because when you think about the action of water going down a drain, it goes
Bang.
in a certain motion versus compressing and releasing, which to me just makes me think we're just emptying, refilling, but we're not traveling it anywhere. It's just compression.
And you know, the reality is that when you activate the nodes of the axilla, the drainage pattern for those is so that they're directly draining into the left subclavian and the right subclavian veins through the left thoracic duct and the right lymphatic duct. And some of that fluid from that area will come up into the supraclavicular, but a lot of it will just actually go straight into those two drainage points. So the activation also helps with the directional flow, because the lymphatic system has got no pump. But once you switch the nodes on, you create a vacuum effect, because when they're switched on, they start to move fluid through them a lot more quickly. And it's a really interesting fact, but, you know, say you've got, say, around 8 to 10 litres of lymphatic fluid at any one time circulating throughout your body. Normally, in any given 24-hour period, only about 2 litres of that actually gets back and rejoins the fluid flow at the heart. So that gives us the idea that it's a super slow-moving system. However, and Bruno Chickley did the research around this, and it's really outstanding, with an efficient activation of the lymphatic system, instead of only getting 2 litres through the body in the heart in a 24-hour period, you actually up that fluid movement to between 10 to 20 litres back through the heart in a 24-hour period.
Wow.
So that's a real big, big number. And that's a real good reason for getting lymphatic fluid happening for your clients. And, you know, I've got lots of handouts. If any of your students are interested, I can direct them to some handouts and my YouTube channel where there's some clips of how to do this stuff. But, you know, just giving clients the information and saying this is what will happen when we do this really helps people to accept a different form of treatment like Chapman's or like lymphatic drainage. People have expectations about the treatments, but the reality is that, you know, sometimes expectations are formed from experience, and sometimes you need to give someone a new experience in order for them to have a different understanding about how their body will work. And that's something that I face all the time with teaching lymphatic drainage and delivering it. People are suspicious of anything they don't understand. So informing your clients with a few great facts and figures about actually what will happen is kind of the gold standard in education. And you and I both know, if we give our clients the power and the knowledge, they love it and they'll come back because you're lifting and empowering them in their own well-being.
Yeah, that's right. Now, Libby's had this question, and it's a really good question. Client who's recovering from breast cancer, could she do this, the movement for, and in actual fact, I think she was actually talking about the drainage by doing the taping and the draining. I think that was really taping for the breast cancer.
She definitely could, but there are certain things that we need to understand about her situation, and every client's really individual. So what you need to understand or to ascertain is what stage are we at? Have we been cleared? Has the client been cleared? What medications? Was there any type of radiation that was used? Was it a segmental or a total mastectomy? Were there nodes left in the area of the incision? So sometimes with breast cancer, most of the nodes, if not all of the nodes, might be removed. Sometimes it's only sentinel nodes. So absolutely, I would say that could be a possibility, but we just need to gather more information. Libby's welcome to email me if she wants to with all the client particulars, and then I can help her and direct her with a bit of a prescription, because that's really what I do with my students. Like you, Paula, you're in constant contact with students kind of saying, yes or no, this will work, this might not work. I would love to say straight out yes, but it would be out of the scope of practice if we didn't kind of check in on all the other little things that we need to learn. So, Libby, you're more than welcome to email me through Paula if you want to with some details, and then I can give you an informed prescription for your client if you're into it.
Yeah. Do you know, the interesting thing is if they have removed the full nodes, then we can at least work some magic with the scar tissue. And talking to Susan Chappelle, she's really big into scar tissue and passive movements. So once they've had the surgery, just getting that, us as a therapist moving the body for them through range, just as soon as you can, as soon as I get clearance from the doctor to actually get any hands-on work. She says if you can get into there within the first 72 hours, like really as soon as they're out of surgery, 24 to
I've gone into, you know, I've had clients who have had surgery who've been given permission by their oncologist to actually receive lymphatic drainage while the drainage tube's in, while the taping is in place. So as provided you've been in clearance, you're good to go. And it's interesting, but, you know, some clients in the past, particularly post-knee surgery, I've actually gone into recovery and started the lymphatic drainage process straight away, provided there were no contraindications or other reasons why I couldn't. So that's definitely doable and advisable, as you've said. Oh, here we go. Libby's, yes, she's been cleared. I just missed the last part of that. Can you get me the last part of that question, Paula?
Yeah, she's been cleared. She has some nodes, and I'll get back to you with details. Thank you. I will email you. You're both on the Chapman support group, so I might try to link it in there as well, so that actually there's a few people in the Chapman's group that are asking about breast cancer and what we can do to help. So I know in the Chapman's work with the neurolymphatics, but it'd be great to have the two work together. So hopefully you guys might be able to link into that portal so that we can help more than one.
There's a lot of correlation, you know, Paula, between what you do and what I do. And they're completely complementary, the way that we both teach these things, because I've seen Chapman's used with my particular form of lymphatic drainage, and it works a treat. And, you know, I've seen it used where the nodes were activated doing my full pressure stationary circles, and then using some of the movement that you've taught also for getting the nodes moving. And it's worked brilliantly. And it's actually with AFL players, believe it or not. I've seen it work because I've been in the clinic room when this is being done. So, you know, you and I have a great kind of co-joining of what we both understand about the neural system and the lymphatic system and how they work together. It's super interesting the way it works. What about, like we said before about lower back, what about someone who comes in with, like you've cleared the nodes, etc. If they've come in with neck pain, what about a few tips for people that are looking? Can we change ranges? Can we improve quality of range of movement with lymph? How does that work? Well, that's a very interesting question, right? So I don't normally do any orthopedic testing when people come in, because usually for me it's a post-surgical application or there's another reason. But I've been in a few classroom scenarios, and I did do some great work with Bruno Chickley's crew, actually, the Chickley Institute, and they were doing some fantastic retesting of range of motion after the application of lymphatic drainage, and I've seen that work. And I've seen it work for neck, shoulder, and back. So there were 3 different applications done in the classroom, and I've seen that, and I feel like that's got a lot to do with the activation of the parasympathetic nervous system, the relaxation of the neural system in the area, and muscular relaxation as well. You know, and actually Bruno Chickley's got some very remarkable videos of increased range of motion. So very interesting, and yes, absolutely, it can be done.
And the reason I ask this is because people don't come in talking about their lymph, nor do they come in talking about their neural pathways. They come in complaining that they're sore here, or they can't take their bra, undo their bra, or they can't brush their hair, or they can't walk the dog because the shoulder. So we have to try to say, I know that's the problem, but we're not going to provide a solution by just working on that area. We have to look at you in a bigger picture. And therapists, as they develop their skills, start no longer working super locally and start working a lot broader. And that's lymphatic drainage is the broad brush, isn't it?
Yeah, it's all about, that's the thing. So when we first start in massage school, we're all there massaging these lumps of protein that we're calling muscles, and we're going hard and we're killing our thumbs, and we think that we've done a great job. And then we realize that that same client keeps coming back week after week, and actually all we're doing is probably like putting a Band-Aid on that issue. And you're 100% right. So working locally is, that's indicated sometimes, but not for very long. But it's a global client. It's a full body. We have to look at all of the lifestyle factors. Sometimes I'll even ask things like, have you got any increased stress at home? Have you changed your pillow? Have you got a new mattress? Are you wearing different shoes? Are you driving a different car? Have you changed the height of your steering wheel? And these are all things that it really gives you information about the global client, the full picture of the client, rather than just that local area. And absolutely, lymphatic drainage, because of that, because of the full body parasympathetic nervous system response, it really works to treat local issues on a much more global body-wise level. And getting the neural system to relax, I actually think that that's probably 90% of the issue with most of the people, including myself, who goes for body work. The tension and the stress and the way that we store memories in our bodies and the way that we store everything that happens to us during the day and the things that have happened to us in our lives, our muscles remember. Our body keeps the score of what happens to us. And there's a great book, I think it's called The Body Keeps the Score by Basil van der Kolk. And it's all about how our muscles and our neural system remembers the trauma that the body and the mind and the spirit has undergone as we live. So neurologically, like Chapman's and MLD is working at that level, that deeper level, and MLD is able to treat really superficial issues, but also very deep issues as well.
Agreed.
So, absolutely.
There's two questions here. One, Libby's asked, I'm just going to throw this out. Have you ever used brushes, or is it all with your hands? But interestingly, Tanya, hey Tanya, South Australia, random question, ladies, are you aware of Emmett technique, and if so, what are your thoughts? Yes is Emmett technique, because it also picks up a little bit of the Chapman's reflexes as well in Emmett.
Okay. I've heard of it. I don't know very much about it though. So that is actually.
It's a little bit of Chapman's, as in the neurolymphatic, but there's also a lot of strain, counter strain, or positional release. That's correct, isn't it, Tanya? It's very much the taking the tissue into ease and allowing it to release and relax and come back out into a more natural. But I'll get her to tap in the comments while you maybe answer Libby's one about the use of brushes.
Oh, that's a good question as well, Libby. And the thing, as I got older, I bought one of those brushes, right? And I thought, right, excellent. I'm going to start brushing towards my nodes. So superficial light brushing with not a super hard brush. So you don't want to push the capillaries to squash them. But what you want to do is brush in the direction of the flow, the lymphatic flow, straight towards the closest node group in a pretty slow and controlled fashion. So the lymphatic system moves slow, so brush slowly. The lymphatic system is very superficial, the one that we're talking about. So therefore you don't want too much pressure, and you want a brush that's not hard bristles, something that's, not camel hair, goat hair brushes are really good. But I've used brushes for myself. I've never used them on my clients. But as I got older, and like I said to Paula in the beginning of the interview, things started going south, I started brushing things north. And it's a lovely way to get the lymphatics moving and to get the fluid flowing where it needs to go. And, there's another great trick. And this is one that I teach to all my clients. clients and my students as well. And it's called Berger's exercise, and it's a fantastic way to anybody that gets fluid in the ankles, the knees, the legs. Most people get the instruction of, hey, lay down and get your legs above your heart, say for 5 minutes or 10 minutes. And that's all very well and good. And yes, to some extent that does work. But there's even a better trick to create an osmotic pressure pump so that the fluid starts to actually cross that cell wall a lot more swiftly. And that's called Berger's technique. So what you instruct your clients to do, and you as well, I do this every time I travel. So when I do a long haul flight, the first thing I do is Berger's technique. It's a 10-minute routine. You divide it into 5 sections of 2 minutes each. In the first 2 minutes, you just lay down with your feet up on the wall above your heart. Very easy. At the second 2-minute mark, so you get your clock at 2 minutes, you sit up and you sit on the edge of a table where your feet are unsupported. So for 2 minutes, you just want to dangle your feet off the edge of a table. And then at the 2-minute mark, so it'll bring you to 4 minutes, legs back up on the wall for 2 minutes, back on the table with the legs dangling for 2 minutes, and the final part is legs up on the wall for 2 minutes. And that will create a fast-moving fluid pump for your legs. It'll really clear fluid quickly. So brushing works really well. And there's one other thing that works great, and it's called a lymphatic health bounce. And it's a mini trampoline. You get your clients on it. They don't even need to jump off it. All they need to do is bounce up and down on the trampoline for 10 minutes, and it activates their lymphatic drainage in the lower half of their body because gravity is hard on the lymphatics. So what you want to do is change that gradient. Yeah. I've got lots of cool tips and tricks for people.
I've got a lady who she stopped playing golf when she was 91, 92, but she would run on her trampoline. She said she would do 100 bounces or 200 bounces, and she's still alive. She's 96 now, and she's still, she's giving herself a little MLD zing. She's pumping that fluid up.
That's brilliant. I love that. And it's actually written up as a health bounce. That's brilliant. That's a lot of the issue when we get older is that we don't move as much and we don't breathe as well because we don't move as much. And so our lymphatic system takes a beating. And, when your lymphatic system gets sluggish, all sorts of things happen. And, your immune system actually takes a bit of a hit as well when your lymphatic system gets sluggish. But that health bounce, and the fact that your client at 96 is doing that is amazing. I mean, that's all the exercise you really needs.
Yeah, and we always say if you tap on those points down the sternum, you're going to turn on the neurolymphatic arc, the neural efficiency for the diaphragm. So we can tap that, wake it up, and then it increases the quality of the relaxation response and parasympathetic activity. Michelle, do you have any tips? There's one of the gorgeous girls in our group. She's a client has a vitamin B6 toxicity. Back in October, she's peripheral neuropathy, and now she's talking. It's peripheral everywhere. It's not just in the legs, because I've seen. We were talking about this symptoms all over, and she's constantly on edge. Now I know that the edginess is her limbic system and her overload of the toxicity in her defense patterns. So at a centralized level, she's already heightened. But if you've got any tips at a lymphatic level to help her.
Regarding the toxicity, the one thing that I would want to know before I decided to proceed. So first of all, you could try a short lymphatic drainage treatment to see if that actually assisted with anxiety, because 90% of people, it really helps with anxiety, okay? But the first thing that I would want to find out in regards to the toxicity is whether her liver or kidneys in particular, had been adversely affected, and whether there was any internal organ damage from the toxicity. Because in regards to peripheral neuropathy, I mean, I've got a couple of different people who've had, I'm just trying to remember the name of it. It'll come back to me in a sec, but peripheral issues of circulation in the fingers and the feet. And MLD has really helped them. It's called, it's just gone out of my head again. It'll come back. So I would find out, first of all, how her kidneys had gone with the toxic overload, whether or not she was on medication. Sorry, Paula.
So back to all her levels of normal now, but that doesn't say if she was, if her levels were off the charts for her kidneys, then it's going to take longer, isn't it? Whether it's how high it's running out, how long it takes you to recover.
Yeah, well, absolutely. But the provider, I mean, you can get a kidney function test. It's just a simple blood test or a urine test. But, you know, if she got her kidney function tested and it was all fine, I would definitely try a short treatment, probably just upper body, maybe a little bit of legs. But if you're interested, I can write you up a little short treatment prescription for somebody who has peripheral neuropathies and anxiety, and then we can take it from there, or you can take it from there and see how you go. Because the one thing about MLD is you don't want to smash out an hour and a half routine if you're not really sure how it's going to go, and whether and the other thing is that sometimes there are some situations where MLD is contraindicated, but the same client has pathologies where MLD is indicated, and then it's one of those things where you weigh it up and you say, okay, well, this is contraindicated. But in order for quality of life to be attained, and this with this client's permission and knowing what will happen, but knowing how beneficial it'll be for the indicated parts of this situation, we're going to choose to use it. So it's one of those really kind of, like you said, how high is a mountain? It's weighing it all up and understanding in a very minute detail exactly what you're dealing with, what your client's expectations are, and how much they're willing to, let's say, experiment a little bit with something that they might not have had before. And then also just following up and seeing how they pull up.
Yeah, so in the Chapman support group, I'm talking to our gorgeous Facebook user. What I want you to do is if you actually type in Michelle Vassallo's name, that way she'll see the loop when it's up on the click, and that way you've got a better chance. Again, because there was a lot of people there in the group the first time that she posted up about the peripheral neuropathy to try to give a little bit of help. So I think that she's not the only person who's had problems. Back to Tanya. The Emmett technique is about chasing the pain and using slow release pressure. So the slow release pressure for me, I'm pretty sure, is still strain counter strain, which is Larry Jones's baby. He was an osteopath in America and followed the same pathway as Andrew Stills Taylor, and it is very Ross Emmett. He's from Queensland from memory, so it's I think from what I've heard of it, Tanya, like the results from it, there's a lot of good feedback. I'm not used to chasing pain. Normally it's find the area of discomfort and then you're actually moving around it, and there's also some scar tissue work that it assists with as well. So
actually, I thought it sounded osteopathic. I just sort of throw something in there, Paula. It's really interesting what you just said about Andrew Still, because Andrew Still, the father of modern osteopathy, said that the lymphatics are actually the river of life. You go straight to the source of life when you go to the lymphatics. So Emmett technique seems to tie in really nicely with osteopathic principles, which tie in really nicely with the lymphatic principles, because the lymphatic pulse, has got quite a strong correlation to that craniosacral osteopathic pulse that craniosacral osteopaths often work with. So that you can see how that ties in really well.
I think probably what we'll see is that fluid is actually going to be, and they use it on dogs and horses too, which is what she's going to learn. That's cool. But I think we'll actually find that fluid is, we started with muscles, and then we went into fascia, or lymph, and then fascia, and then we're talking about immune and inflammation. But I think it's all going to tie back to the fluid. So, I mean, like fascia, I think fluid is actually probably going to be that'll be the new buzz word, more so than fascia.
Nice? Well, there's actually a great article by Bruno Chickley called the lymphofascia matrix. And the article explores what happens when you work the lymphatic fluid, the change in the nature of the fascia and the softening that happens. So by activating the lymphatic system, that extracellular fluid plane attached with the fascia, that the use of that actually softens the fascia and allows any other work that's done to be less aggressive on that fascial plane. So that's a great article. It's Bruno Chickley, the lymphofascia matrix, and that you can find that easily online, or I can send it to anyone who's interested in reading it. But it's all about the correlation between fluid, as you said, Paula, it's kind of going to be the buzzword, and how it relates to fascia and how that lymphofascial matrix works together and how activating lymphatics changes the fascia, changes the nature of the fascia and softens it immediately. So that's a very astute observation on your behalf. Yeah, it's all tied together.
And when you talk to people like Perry Nicholson, he's big into the fact that we're talking about the immune, the inflammatory system, nutritionally, and the lymph. So it's getting more and more and more credibility as the time goes on. So, guys,
thank goodness we've been around a long time.
We've had a great time chin-wagging. Thank you for those people who have showed up. I'm quietly hoping, I didn't actually ask Eloisa, but I'm quietly hoping that this has been recorded somewhere so that we might be able to save this for anybody. Don't we have 5 times more lymph than blood? Yes, I think we have 5 times more lymph than blood. There are a lot of questions coming out now.
Well, it's actually about double. We have about double. But the interesting thing is it's 2 systems of the same recycled fluid running side by side. So blood becomes lymph and lymph becomes blood. And there's a constant escaping of plasma through the semi-permeable cell wall, and red blood cells are too big to go where that fluid, that plasma fluid can go. So it's always, it's it's one system, 2 systems with the same fluid recycled over and over.
Correct. And then if you stick up, and this is throwing something into a cat amongst the pigeons, then you get a magnet, you start moving a magnet and trying or sit a magnet in a positive polarity or a negative polarity will either draw it forward or back or down. So there's all sorts of crazy stuff that you can involve in there.
Absolutely.
But we won't get it. Michelle just said, is there a common cause for lymphedema where there has been no injury?
Well, that's a good question. Sometimes it's congenital. Occasionally people develop it as teenagers. So there's a couple of different types of lymphedema that can develop as people age. And the names of them have escaped me at the moment, but I can find them for you. So there are some people who develop lymphedema at a later stage, potentially because of congenital or hereditary factors, but there are also people who develop lymphedema not because of an injury, but because of some type of internal change or some medication, a new medication. Sometimes So there could be some kind of compression. There could have been an old injury that has become a latent lymphedema. And sometimes clients don't even remember that something's happened, say 5 to 10 years ago. And all of a sudden this latent lymphedema will develop. So yeah, there's absolutely not a common cause, but there are multiple reasons why a lymphedema can develop when there's been no injury. And that could be internal factors as well. So that's kind of a good question.
Yeah, that is awesome. I can't remember. Kelly, if you can type in, are you in the Chapman's support group page? I've got a feeling you might be, but if you're not, I'm just trying to work out where we'll go for doing the she would like to read more about the lymphofascial connection. What I can
email it to you.
Yeah, all right. So if you want to that
to you, awesome. Pop it up in the group for everyone. Yeah, that's easy, mate. So I'll email you that lymphofascia, and then if anyone needs to contact me, they can through Chapman's, or there's also the YouTube channel. So if anyone wants to see a sequence and how it works, you can just jump onto Rhythm Massage and see the sequences in there. And then if you need to ask me a question, you can contact Paula or through the Chapman's group or through Rhythm Massage. But I'm so happy to help anybody that's been listening or that will be listening, because in my mind, if everyone in the world had one lymphatic drainage, we wouldn't be in the absolute horror that we're in at the moment, because there'd be a lot more chilled out people. So it would work beautifully.
Yeah.
Sorry?
If people could breathe and get into relaxation, turn off the sympathetic nervous system, there's your start. Kelly is, so that's really good. We'll be able to drop it back in there. Guys, I love the fact that everyone was quiet, and then we got to like the last time, and then everything's like tap, 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 tap. I don't know if Michelle can see all that stuff, but I'm just looking at the comment section. There's like boom, 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 boom. I'd love to keep talking, but we've actually exhausted our time that my moderator has got available on StreamYard. This won't be a one-off thing that we're doing. Please, if you're interested in any of the modules, learning more about manual lymphatic drainage from Michelle, you want to go onto Rhythm Massage on her just on the website. There you go. You can follow her. Yep. She's all over it. Loy is the bomb. If you want to know more about how to integrate Chapman's reflexes or neurolymphatic point stimulation, and you're already an MLD practitioner, then you want to jump onto my Facebook group or email or look at the website. We're both here to help make this world a better place. And Michelle,
yes, we are.
Thank you so much. It's been an absolute kicker, as always. I love having you. Anytime I can get with you, it's always amazing.
Yeah, I love talking to you, Paula. Thanks for being a warrior, for, just making the world a better place. You're doing such a great job. And, it's true. We are here to make the world a better place, and every body worker is here to make the world a better place as well. So, from both of us, me and you, we appreciate the fact that people take the time to listen to this stuff. It's important for everyone. And thank you for asking me to be here. I love hanging out with you online, mate. It's fun.
You're my first on this platform. I went, who can I bring on that I know is just can talk forever, and not John Sharpie, because I don't have 4 hours.
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you, Libby. Thank you, Tanya. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, everybody else who's been here. We're going to rock and roll. Love you. We're going to leave you, and namaste.
Namaste. Bye, Paula. Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Cheers.